life example, like something I don't understand. Can you explain to me what you mean? Give me a scenario.
Simple. Yeah.
Okay, so then the person gives the analogy, the story and everything. Then people are like, I'm enlightened.
Yeah. Okay. I just enlighten,
There you go. The rest is like you must always have a certain amount of nervousness, because I think when you have a bit of nervousness, it means you care, right?
I have never met or worked with any successful individual, any successful CEO that is not an excellent communicator.
Always understand it's not about you. I think when you take the focus off yourself and think about what you're trying to do, and your focus is on making an impact on others, then you get the attention of yourself. Then you really are then focused on what you're trying to say. It was a prayer to God, right? I want to come out of this situation, God, better, not bitter. And I don't know what better means. I really didn't know what better looked like.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Living in Control podcast. I'm your host, Reza Abraham. I'm the author, co-founder of the In Control Group, an organization with a mission to help others to be in control of their lives and career. We imagine a world in which most people are in control of their lives, a conscious life accompanied by conversion, contentment, and consistency. In today's podcast, we are going to talk about another pillar in living an in control life called communication, which is your ability to make everything so simple so that everybody can understand. Today on our podcast, we have invited someone who is one of the prides of Malaysia, award-winning broadcast and communication veteran, host and a presenter of a number of radio and TV channels. She has conducted over 5,000 interviews, guys, with prominent names such as WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, and is a highly sought after moderator for corporate events, a speaker for women's empowerment and personal branding, a trainer and a coach. And if it's not enough, guys, she has authored 6 books. Oh my God, 6 books. Her last book is Life's a Stage, describes how each phase in life is an opportunity to live full and beautiful while staying true to oneself. Rock it while you are on that stage. It's an honor to welcome our guest from the beautiful city of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Freda Liu.
Hi, Reza.
Hi, thank you so much for being with us. It's such an honor to have you on board,
It's such a pleasure to be speaking to you too.
Thank you. You know, some people's, when you look at their resume and the list of the accomplishments that they have, and then you are like, what are you doing achieving so much? You're making other people's resume look bad,
That's because I've lived a longer life than you, Reza. Auntie has been around for a long time.
Oh my God. I mean, putting joke aside, I was truly amazed with the work you have done. And I know about your work, of course, in Malaysia for a long time. I've been listening to your works in BFM and all. And it was amazing. I mean, I was just like, keep going through page after page, accomplishment after accomplishment. And it's really nice, So this is the type of like, you are someone that I personally can describe it as you are living an in control life. Yeah. And it's just amazing looking at like 6 books and so on. So let's just start the talk by like, what drives you to go out, do all this work and knock it down? You have done so much. What drives Freda?
Okay. All right. I was just thinking about this the other day, and I actually wrote about it in my book as well. This year will be 30 years since my dad passed away. So he died 2 months short of his 60th birthday. He was a great father, a wonderful husband, and it was knowing after I'm the youngest child, after I graduated, a month after that he fell ill, a couple of months after that he passed away. And he's done all his duty as a father And, I guess my mother definitely missed him because she was still fairly young when my dad passed away, right? And I always wonder whether he died with the music in him, right? I have an uncle, which I've never met, who also passed away before. He died very, very young before I was born. Imagine my parents are from Sarawak. My father was from the small town in Sarawak, right? And so this uncle, imagine this small town in Sarawak, back in the 50s or 60s, got on a boat to New York to be a musician, right? This is quite radical, right?
Yes.
At that time, right? And he got on a boat to be a musician, to be in a band in New York, right? And my dad's a very talented musician, right? But like he can pick up music and all. And I just went, did he die with the music in him? And I think that's the thing that always triggers me, whether and so also like my regret is like I never got to to spoil him after I started working, where all the things that you see that I've done, he's never seen it, right? And oh geez, talk about it, I'm gonna cry. Okay, so but it's like then I look back at my own life, right? And I think you sort of find what is your purpose, and you find that along the way.
Yep.
And I know that on the broad scale, you want to impact lives, right?
Sure.
And you find out what is it that you are naturally gifted in. And sometimes a lot of it is actually what you are good at young is a clue, right, to what you should be doing. And you try to fight it and say, no, you can't get a job here, you can't do these sort of things here. But you realize that this is a thing. And when I do my work, whether it's writing the book or going on radio, and even if it's a business story, right, and a business person heard that interview and made an impact the way they run their business, I've impacted that person's life, right?
Sure.
I don't think about the thousands of people, but if I have impacted one person's life through the things that I've done, then I have done my part, right? And I don't want to die with the music in me. And I have to start with death. I'm sorry.
No, that's inspiring. In fact, the way I always define it, the word driver is in exactly the same way. I always tell people, I don't believe in motivation. I think motivation is like completely overrated. It's not really, it's like taking a shower. You take a shower in the morning, you take a shower in the evening, and that's about it. But how we often ask people to find what's your driver is to ask yourself, what is the one thing or one person that you are not willing to sacrifice it for anything else in this world? That's your driver. So it's amazing to know like your driver is basically making an impact and the inspiration that your father has in you. So you are trying to basically just pay it forward and making sure that you can be an impact. And it doesn't matter how many people you do that. All right. So whether one person get impacted or many people, it's always like, that's not something we are in control. We are doing something that we can do to drive other people to do the best as well. So Freda, when was the time that you realized communication is your calling in life? Like what age was it? Was it like you're born, suddenly you started to do all these things?
Okay. There's so many aspects of story. So when I was young, I loved taking part in drama. I loved doing debates. I realized that I do like it, right? And you don't think much about it, right? Then when I started studying, I did a business degree in marketing, and in the degree course, I did one subject in public relations, and I absolutely love it. And I remember coming back to Kuala Lumpur after I finished my studies. It was a choice of advertising or PR, so it's kind of still communication kind of thing. And I decided to do PR because I love writing the press release. I love, whether writing the speech, coming up with a plan, executing on the plan. That was the reason that I got into PR. So that was a kind of communication. How I got into radio and TV was completely by accident. It was not a childhood dream. It was nothing like that. If you want to hear the story, I can tell you, but it was by accident. And sometimes you try to fight it, and yet the offers and the opportunities still came in that way. And I can say like, I do love all kinds of communications, not just radio, not just TV, but writing and all of it. And I find, okay, so that's the thing. And I always tell people, you'll find the clue when you're young. So when I look at my son, right, I always encourage, he loves drawing, right? Even from a child, you just put a piece of paper, take him to a restaurant, quiet like a mouse, piece of paper on him, and he likes drawing. And I said, this is the talent that you have. It's something that is so natural for you, but you got to work at it. You got to improve on it. But this is the thing that I see in you. This one cannot be dentist, doctor, lawyer kind of thing. Like you don't try to fight what is a natural natural gift for you. And of course, it comes in so many ways right now. When we talk about communication, right? Of course, you go your podcast lah, that kind of thing. There's so many ways around it, but you sort of identify certain things. And of course, even growing up, right, in a typical Asian family, you try to do the more. I know I couldn't be an accountant. I don't enjoy law. I knew I could. So it was still a respectable business degree, but I know that I like that whole marketing, advertising kind of scene, right? Which is a kind of communication.
Sure. Freda, are you familiar with the work of Carol Dweck?
Yes, I love her book. Yes, of course.
Right. Fantastic.
Yes,
because
yes.
I saw that you have a book also about the fixed mindset, right? Yes. So just to explain to our audience here, what's the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset? Fixed mindset always believe that intelligence is something which is very much inborn, right? So either you have it or you don't have it. You can't do anything about it. But growth mindset people are those that they believe intelligence is something can be developed. It means that if you are not able to do something right now, it's just not yet. So the questions that I have for you is that, do you think communication, it's a type of like fixed mindset or it's a growth mindset? Can we develop communication skills? Like some people, they just say like, oh God, I'm not good at communication. Do you think it's something that they can develop?
Of course. At the moment you say, of course I cannot do it, then that's the fixed mindset. You put a stop, right? Yeah. Even like whatever I do right now, you always stop and ask this question: how can I be better? Sure. Right? You never arrive, right? So even when I do my radio, I do everything that I do. After everything that I do, I always ask, how can I be better? Very right? Good. Because you're always going to be better. You never, have reached perfection. It's always going to be. So, and I think that's important, right? So what happens also, I just shared as a parent, I don't know if you're a parent, as a parent, even if you have a child that's really good, you say, great job, even though the child has done really well, but you also say, and stop and ask, hey, do you think you could have done better? So the kid doesn't think that I have reached the ultimate level, and then they're afraid to make mistakes when they grow older. If you don't ask the question, because they've always been number one, then they don't know how to react when they're not number one. So when you implant that in your child, how can I be better? They know that I can always be better, right? And that lifts your mind and opens your mind that you can always improve.
Sure. So what would be let's say, for example, okay, this is something amazing about you, because you have done like too much, when it comes to like communication. When I was looking at your work, so you have been a broadcaster, you have been a podcaster, you have been a moderator, you have been a trainer, you have been a coach, you have been a writer, you have been a MC, presenter, journalist. God, is that these are not the same communication things. They are totally different. They're not the same. Yeah. Right. And when I was listening to some of the works that you have done, you also write your script yourself, right? If somebody looking at Freda and thinking like, I want to be someone like Freda, but I don't know where to start. And what you have done is like all range of communication. So how someone can pick a path in that communication industry?
Right. Okay. So I'm just currently reading a book called Everything is Figureoutable. Okay.
That's from who?
This is Maria Forleo. Maria Forleo. So just with a book title like that, and that's the thing, right? When I was in my early part of my career, there was no such thing called the internet. Now there is an internet. There is no excuse to learning something, right? There is no excuse. You want to figure out something, you can go online and figure out something and work and improve it. And I have also tried things that I don't think I naturally am good at this, but I'm glad I tried it. And then so I move on and try something else. Right? And something will stick and something won't stick, but it's okay. It's not in the world. You're not going to die, right? That's my rule of thumb. Did I die? Did I bleed? No, it's okay, right? Just try it.
Sure.
It's just the only thing that's bruised is probably your ego. Right?
Ego is the enemy.
Right? So it's okay. So, and you say that I want to improve, watch videos, there's so many places to learn how to be a good journalist. Do a search.
But how do you find out like which one do I need to pick?
Oh, okay. So for me, I think I just experimented. I think
just experimented
and see if so some people maybe naturally don't like to write. Okay. Am I a Nobel laureate writer, I don't think so. Right. Sure. And it's fine because I'm not writing novels. I'm writing, a non-fiction stuff. Right. But I just write simply to communicate. And that's my objective. Right. So if I want to, I can learn. Right. If I want to, but I don't have an interest. Not at this point in my life, but I'm not saying no. So everything, you just try it out. So one of the things that I did in the last 2 years was I did a postgrad diploma in design thinking. And what intrigued me to do design thinking was like, the whole concept of design thinking is that you come up with a product. It's called a minimal viable product, right? Doesn't work. It's a prototype. I will try another one. So why can't you treat your life like a prototype? Doesn't work. Let me try another. Let me try another prototype. Let me try another prototype and see what sticks, right? So it's not the end of the world to try new things, And like I said, on my deathbed, people will regret not trying things as opposed to trying something and fail.
So which one do you think comes first? Like, let's say somebody said that, okay, I like journaling, I like broadcasting, I like being a trainer, I like to write a book. Which one do you think should come first? Like based on your practice?
Okay, my practice, right? From my see, even the whole thing of how I got into PR and then journalism. Most people would have gone to journalism first and then gone into PR, right? A lot of conventionally, right? Because they learn the writing skills and then they go into PR and they work. I don't know if things have changed my time. Then you want to work for the client side, work for a multinational corporation, that kind of thing, a stable job, a good income. That's how people conventionally did it. I did it the other way around. And the reasons I started in PR was because, I would do, I would get that stable income, and that was the thing. But the part-time job was radio and TV. So that was the thing that I did part-time, right? Before I joined BFM, and I merged both my skills in corporate and broadcasting together because it's a business station, right? But who knew that when I did all this, that there would be a station called BFM? When I did all these things.
It was started like a startup, right?
Yes, yeah. So 13 years ago, that was a startup. But, so I think, so conventionally what people will do is they will start with journalism first, and then they will go maybe PR if they're interested, then maybe you can try broadcasting. So now, my time, like most people work for a newspaper, so these things pretty much don't exist anymore. Right? So you have this thing called a platform, whether you can write on LinkedIn, you can write a blog, you can start presenting yourself out there. You can
get immediate feedback. You can get immediate feedback.
It's called YouTube. It's called TikTok. There's all these platforms that you can start experimenting with and seeing what's possible out there, right? So there's so many ways of, I wouldn't say reinventing, but adding on to your skills, right? And see what interests you.
Multi-skilling yourself. I mean, you're one of the great example of like someone who is multi-skilled person, because some people, they just know how to write. Some people, they just know how to talk. I have listened to like thousands of authors, and some of them, they are excellent writers. But when you listen to their interview and all, you kind of like, man, you better start writing. You don't talk much, right? And there are some people, when you read, it doesn't attract you, but when you listen to the person, you say like, oh my God, he's such a talented presenter. Like, so which one is your first love? Which one, like when you go, I mean, love, we are talking about job love.
Okay. My first love, I would say my first love is actually radio. Yes. I love the power of the voice, of getting that message across without the help of visuals. If you can master that, visuals are, add-ons, right? So I love that, because also my growing up years, I remember I lived in a very small town in Brunei. That was where I was growing up, and it was still a British protectorate at that time. And there's this little radio station, which I can only get in the town, not even the capital city, called the British Forces Broadcasting Station. So this was the soldier station, and I was listening to the way they talk, and that was my entertainment, right? And I was like, wow, that's so mesmerizing how something like that. And radio is very different from TV. Radio is like it's like a friend. You feel like you're listening to a friend when they're talking. When you listen to podcasts, it feels like a friend is listening in on a conversation or something. So I love that, and I love when I do radio that I am, getting information from someone and listening to someone. So I think that if you have mastered the ability to speak by just voice alone, everything else is a piece of cake.
Yeah, I recall I was listening to one of your interview, or was it like in BFM? You mentioned like talking radio is a magic. Yes. It's like you're doing a magic because people can't see you, but you trigger the imagination to think and feel how you feel. That was a very interesting way to describe it. Yeah. And so that small village, listening to that radio is planted the seeds of falling in love with radio. So if I want to ask you, somebody come and say, okay, Freda, we need to sign this agreement for the rest of your life. You can do only one type of communication. What do you do?
You're putting a gun to my head. How horrible, Reza. Okay, I have to say, moving on, I have to say video, right? I have to say video because in video, right, would have both. Okay, you can still get the story across, and it doesn't have to be fancy lights, fancy, background or whatever. But there's some. I mean, as much as I love radio, right? I mean, that will be more all-encompassing that you can see visual and audio. And there's something when we're talking right now, when you can see my face, I can see your face. It's different, right?
Yes,
it's different. Of course, like I say, it's the skill when you're able to do that just on radio alone. But it's different now. You see, if you just hear my voice, you think I'm going to be very fierce, but you can see that I'm talking to you right now and I'm smiling, right?
Sure.
So yeah, that would be.
Would you recommend your skill set, like communication, to your son? Would you do that?
Yes, of course, right? But he has children. I'm sure you like that. They never want to listen to anything their mother says. Maybe but when he's old.
They will. They're watching you. I have two sons too, and I like sometimes when people ask me like, so how did you get to where you are? Like, be a trainer, speaker, and all those stuff. And what's very funny is that my mom was a teacher. My dad was a banker. And you know what I'm doing right now? Like 90% of the clients that I'm dealing with, all are banks. I teach leadership training in banks.
Right. See?
So I just like fall right in between of my parents.
So your parents are very proud.
My son also will not fall very far from you. At some point, he might say like, I want to become the next Freda Liu, So like, would you ask him to do that?
I will, whatever. So I am of the belief that you must, to whatever your love is, right? Whatever I will encourage him, because I think I had that encouragement from my parents, right? Where they encouraged me in whatever I did. They let me decide. They're not as educated, right? So they couldn't guide me on what to do, but they've always encouraged whatever I've decided to do. So I'm very fortunate in a sense, and I want to do that for my son as well. But if it comes to me, mom said, how can I, improve my brand? How can I do all these things? Of course, then this is the way to go, right?
Beautiful.
But he has to chart his own path. I cannot be the helicopter mom.
Oh yeah, and just now that we were mentioning this, it was like, I have met people who are like really professional in certain area, meaning that, let's say for example, they are like accountants, they are like lawyers, doctors, and all this stuff, right? And then when I tell them like, do you teach your stuff to your children? They said no. I'm like, why? They say no. I want them to find it by their own. I want them to basically to figure it out themselves, making mistakes and learn. This is how I learn. But I completely disagree with that, Freda. You know why? Because I believe that our children are going to have a lot of challenges that we are not experiencing it right now. So if we allow our kids to learn everything on their own, guess what? They are not even starting from where we are. I want my children to be a cut above me. I don't want him to start like far under where I started. So I teach everything. Communication also is like something that, frankly speaking, I have never met or worked with any successful individual, any successful CEO that is not an excellent communicator. It's like I would say, is the spine of all the skill sets. That you all need to have. Otherwise, you can't connect with other people. So we spoke about like the sharing this journey with your children as well. So you mentioned that this is an awesome thing, and you will definitely do that, but you leave it to your child to make decisions to do that, right? So when it comes to communication, what is difficult communication to you? Okay, let me give you an example. I give you an example so that you will know like where am I going, because that's also a very tricky topic. Like for me, if I'm talking to a group of people and they are not very supportive, like you say something and then they're all like looking at you like a one kind, that's considered difficult. Or you're doing an interview with someone and then you start to realize like, actually this person is not as good as I thought. Right. That could be. I mean, it depends on what. What is your difficult communication?
I think, like for example, for me, if you talk about interviews and all that, like say if it's with one person, of course, I've also learned NLP, right? Rapport building, right? So before the interview comes on, you try to get to know the person, warm them up, so you try to win them on their side. But I know that crowd thing and like, how am I going to get you on my side, right? And I guess for me, the trick would be to find 2 or 3 people you can connect with. They always say, look at 2 or 3 smiling faces, and you yourself is smiling, right? Because when you smile, some people will smile back at you and mirror that, right? So you just calm down in that sense. But I think like difficult conversations in the work scenario, I still, like there's somebody I don't like, a client you don't really like, that is still difficult. Right. I still find that challenging. I think that's a very difficult communication in that sense, right? Even when I was working in IBM and I had and it was a regional office and I had to deal with people from India, from Thailand, so Indonesia, so where their language is not very, that was to me easier, right? Then because what happens is I then learned to speak slowly, right? This is live before videos, learn to speak slowly, and then you end off the conversation with an email with simple bullet points to summarize what we just talked about. So I mean, even that is easier, but I think that confrontational conversation is very difficult for me, right?
Sure.
Without, but I'll tell you as much as possible. What I do is I usually wait for myself to calm down, right? Before I calm down. And
how do you do that?
You wait for 2-3 days if you have to, right? Or you can write that, you can write that nasty note on draft.
Oh, you're talking about that pause things, right? The pause thing, that you're giving. Okay.
Or write something on, like a lot on journaling or whatever you're more scream into a pillow, what have you, right? And write it on draft. Make sure you don't put to and then actually send, okay? Don't put any names there. So when you can write it, and then after that, try to have a conversation about the situation in hand and say, look, our objective is this, right? So, and then, and that's what I'm trying to do. So at the end of the day, I think we can agree that our objective is this? And so let us work together to achieve this, right? And I'm telling you, this is still difficult.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's called crucial conversation, because it's like, any conversation that it might end up like verbally violence or silence, right? Do you still get nervous, Freda?
Yes, I do. Of course, I still get.
Which one will make you nervous more? Radio, TV, MC, trainer, coach?
Okay, so I think for me, it would be training because like you're trying to impart your knowledge, right? You're trying to, and then you want to make sure that they also is experiential learning and all that. So you're just trying to, I think, so the burden is like, I hope I'm able to share enough, right? I hope I'm able to facilitate the session well enough so that everybody goes out there having learned something. I think so. That's more it. But the rest is like you must always have a certain amount of nervousness, because I think when you have a bit of nervousness, it means you care. Right? It means that you care, because you're like, that means it's like, doesn't matter, it doesn't worry me anymore, right? Then you get cocky, and then that's when you start making mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Right? So you always have to have a certain amount of nervousness, because that puts you on alert, right?
Yeah.
And
that butterfly effect there, right? So what do you do to calm yourself down, especially like, when you're talking to a group of people that you don't know them and they're not like friendly, and you don't see any 2 people there smiling at you. Right. So
you just smile. I think you for me, you just smile, and then I find that humor always calms people down, and sometimes the self-deprecating humor, laugh at yourself, right? And people will laugh, because don't make fun of people, make fun of yourself. And I think that's sort of, and the moment people laugh or smile, that everybody sort of like, I think that's where you get to a certain kind of rapport. So I find that humor helps. You don't have to be a comedian, but just something self-deprecating, something that will just get them on your side, right? I find that is the way to go. And that's who I am as well. I'm not perfect. Sure. I hope even. I think like everything that I do, I'm also learning from the person that I speak to, right? I'm talking to you right now. As I'm listening to you, I'm learning something as well, right? So that's the attitude, that's the spirit of things. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the way you manage your nervousness is often you're using like humor. That's the like smiling at people that will help you, and okay. So the one side of it is like, some people, they say like, well, I don't have a sense of humor, and then like, I wish I would tell a joke, nobody laugh, right? So I'm just going to make fun of myself. So maybe this is not for me. Knowing your audience will help, right? So what do you do to get to know your audience generally?
Okay, so I guess like before you go into any session, you do talk to the organizer, right? So you talk to the organizer about who are the people attending, how old are they usually? You think they're more males, more females? Where do you think, you know what I mean? So try to get as much information as possible about the people that are attending. Of course, you're not going to get the all of it, but so you try to connect with them at the level, right? So when I speak to people who are millennials, it'd be different, someone who's in their 30s and their 40s and the life stage they're at, right? So you also then connect with them on that level, because I've gone through more life stages, a lot, a few more people.
Sure.
So I try to connect with them when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s, right? So try to know your audience as much as possible. And I think this is one thing, right? Always understand it's not about you. I think when you take the focus off yourself and think about what you're trying to do, and your focus is on making an impact on others, then you get the attention of yourself. Then you really are then focused on what you're trying to say, right? Or what you're trying to share. Because I've stopped being concerned about me. The goal then is that I will be able to help someone else, right? I mean, so many things, right? When you start going on TV, for example, and you think, oh, I wonder how I look, then it's all about you, right? If you're just like, whatever, I think I've done the best that I can. This is the face I'm born with. Now, what am I here to do, right? What am I here to do?
Yep. I think that is exactly what we also mentioned about the whole concept of in control. So we need to take responsibility for the things that we can control. We don't need to apologize for something that we can't control. Right. One thing that, I always like look at it, like I'm sure you're also looking at like all these news channels and the stuff that you are putting out. And especially when we conduct training or when we go, for example, MC something, you can actually say a wrong thing and nothing may happen because people are not recording you 24/7. Right. But when you go on TV and radio, the preparation become very important. Yeah. And when I was listening to you that you say like, I like usually to write my own script. How do you get prepared, for someone like, and I was very curious to know, like, so people who are talking on the radio, especially nowadays with a lot of like fake news and all this stuff, right? How do you QC the information? Like, where do you get your first-hand information?
Right. Of course, you actually still rely on reputable news companies. Like, maybe sometimes we'll get something from The Guardian or New York Times or Reuters or whatever. So you, as much as possible, still go to the respectable ones, all right? In my show, we talk about a lot about entrepreneurs. So we go to Fast Company. We go and look at all this kind of magazines that are a bit more reputable, right? So we use that as a basis. And then of course, you quote, now I got this from so and so, right? So it's not, coming out from my behind, right? So you also quote where your sources are from. And then, of course, you as much as possible in the early days, you write everything down. And it's sort of now you sort of get it, you get little bullets and pointers and all that, but you get your information from reliable sources, compile it, and then develop a story out of that. Right, so that's how you do it. Yeah.
So, like for example, when you are having a show in a day, when do you guys start preparing all these things?
Okay, so I'll talk about my show, right? Of course, I'll give you two examples. So the morning show, which is not what I do, but the morning show has like, what's the stock market yesterday, right? So those guys have it tough. They're probably asleep at 8 p.m. and wake up at 3 a.m., right? And to prepare for what's the latest. They would have had some sort of background information already, but then they're still sort of updating. So they've got it tough. My show starts at 10, so it's okay.
Oh,
but
nice.
we do have, so there's some stories that are not so like, it's time sensitive. So we have, like when we talk to entrepreneurs, it's not so time sensitive, so that can be recorded. I would like to go in and record or do live shows on the day itself, but I would prepare a week in advance. Then there's a show that's happening at 12 o'clock, right? And that's live. So that one, we will also get our contacts maybe still also like about a week before, right? Try to book people's time, that sort of thing. So that's what we do. So it's like anything from a day. Sometimes it's something that's so current, right? COVID has announced that, some kind of measures. So sometimes it's very, very current, but most of the time we can sort of work it out, 3 days at the least notice to a week. Yeah.
So how much reporting has changed since like last time and nowadays? Because now, like, I think the flow of the information is like way faster compared to the past, right? How much has it changed?
Okay, so again, like it depends on, of course, the news is always current, obviously, but again, it depends on what kind of, for example, let me just see something that, for example, next week is like the 1 week is World IP Day, right? And World IP Day, then we know that the people are, we start calling intellectual property lawyers and that kind of get that information, right? So we know on that day is World IP Day, but we can speak to the people before. So that's kind of current, but we know certain, and World IP Day is important information for entrepreneurs. So you kind of prepare that way and, make something that is current, but yet it's not so time sensitive. But yeah, today is World IP Day. You need to prepare for it, but you sort of know, right? But there's some things like travel, right? Now the things are changing so often, right? Then you look at an expert who covers travel, and then maybe you get a person coming on once a month and say, so what's happened last month? What's happening? What do you think will be happening this month? It's current news, but it's not so time sensitive that way.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed that even while we are having this conversation, the language that you use and the way that you speak is pretty simple. I think that's one of the things that make you also to become a great communicator. I mean, the way that even I personally define communication is the art of making everything simple so that everybody can understand. How do you deal with some people that, like, you're talking to lawyers, you're talking to all these like IP people, and they're using like all sort of like jargon, bombastic word, complex sentences. So how do you make your show much more simple? I mean, I think one thing that you use this term, you said educate, entertain, enlighten. Am I saying correctly? Okay.
Yes.
So how do you make that happen, especially when you're talking to all these like serious people?
Okay. All right. Okay. So educate is easy, right? Okay, that's the objective, right? To educate, okay? To entertain. So entertain doesn't mean entertain, right? But it's like, I was entertained about that piece of information and something I don't know or something I know, but never saw it that way. So you're enlightened. So in terms of like the jargon thing, and that's that fine line in communication, especially in radio, right? When they get into this jargony thing, I have no issues, even if I understand it, but I would think that majority of the people might not understand it. I will ask the question, what do you mean by this word? What do you mean by this phrase? Can you give me an example?
Sure.
Right. So I don't mind sounding a little bit,
vulnerable and I don't know what is it that
it's means. Okay, because I want your end
audience to know,
to understand, right? Great. So I think that's important. And also, like, I guess with radio, any form, is that you don't talk down to people, but you do want to make it accessible to all, right? You don't dumb down. But then, like, for example, like something I don't understand, can you explain to me what you mean? Give me a scenario.
Simple. Yeah.
Okay, so then the person gives the analogy, the story and everything. Then people are like, I'm enlightened.
Okay. I just enlighten,
There you go.
Yeah. So normally this is how I call it. I say, like, so either you can become a professional communicator or you can become an incompetent educator. Right. So incompetent educator is someone who takes something very simple, make it so complicated so that nobody understands what they're talking about. Right. And a professional communicator is someone who can take a very complicated things, make it so simple so that everybody can understand.
And it comes back to your target audience as well, right? For example, if it's say I'm a lawyer and I'm talking to another lawyer, my audience is all lawyer, I can go all jargony. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay. But I have to understand what my medium is and who my end audience is, right? So you always have to remember what your end audience is. So sometimes you can get all clever, but because the audience is like this, and then you simplify it, then you're also doing this injustice to them, right? So understand. So mine is if you talk about radio, it's mass, right? In a way, mass. So you have to be aware of who your audience is at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And you wouldn't know who is basically just like tuning in to listen. Right. So who has inspired you or influenced your work the most?
I would say I mean, and you may say, okay, you're typical, but okay, Oprah Winfrey, I don't listen to her all the time, right? But when she first came the scene, and the reason why I say Oprah Winfrey, can you imagine she came out in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
She was a Black woman, right? A Black woman, not your typical, skinny, sexy or whatever, right? And okay, so she broke so many molds, okay? And she's Black, she's a woman, she's not your typical whatever. She wasn't young when she came out, right? But she had content, right? And she broke so many molds because before that, you don't see any Black women. So just that whole, you don't realize until you're like, wow, what an impression it was, the Bannister effect, because she can do it, so can I, right? Like the Roger Bannister story.
Yes,
I can't run a mile in less than 4 minutes, and he did it, and suddenly everybody could do it, right?
Yes.
The other person I'm inspired is actually Arianna Huffington. Okay,
very good.
Who started Huffington Post.
These are all like my favorite authors.
Oh, okay, all right. So, and what
Huffington
happened?
Post.
She started her business in Huffington Post in 2005 and sold it, I think, 8 years later for 300+ million. But she started it at 55, right? And she's now 70 and with a new business called Thrive.
Yes,
right? And wow, 55.
And her book is amazing. Yeah,
I still have time.
That's true. I mean, you're just the start of it, and it's like this is what I always tell to people is that I mean this is something that I also learned it from Jim Collins, the author of The Good to Great, right? He said like the enemy of being your best is just to be good. So you are pretty good at what you're doing, and you definitely your best is far in front of you. So just to wrap up this whole thing, the other questions that I was very curious to know. So Oprah Winfrey, what we call it, Arianna Huffington, and but there is some people when you're talking to them, they will say like history is always like full of people who has say something or have done something that it really influenced people and like generation after that. It's amazing to hear like somebody like you in Malaysia get inspired, for example, by a job of like Oprah. Right. So like some of those famous one that I can think of, like these are like master communicators, like for example, like Winston Churchill. There was this what was that, our finest hour, he has that speech, or Martin Luther King's, he said, I have a dream. Yeah, Nelson Mandela was like, what was that? I'm prepared to die or something. Yeah. So have you ever had like those moments that you listen to someone say something and it like suddenly like touch your heart? We call it as an environmental cues you got suddenly. Has there anyone like his words or his voice or his communication like truly impacted you that you can remember until today? Okay,
I mean there's so many, right? I mean when you look at Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world, right? So there are all these things that you're like, yeah, I am the one who have made change. But I tell you what was very personal for me, and this was me going through a very difficult period in my life and just not knowing I'll get out of it. And it was the shortened version of Nelson Mandela, right? Drinking poison, and you're drinking poison and expecting someone else 100%. To die, right? And that is to not be bitter, right? And that's something that I've, and I remember at that very difficult point in my life, before I actually went on this whole trajectory, I was just like, it was a prayer to God, right? I want to come out of this situation, God, better, not bitter. And I don't know what better means. I really didn't know what better looked like. But I just knew I don't want to be a bitter person. So I said, just help me on this journey. And I don't know what that picture is yet. But I think that was the thing that still resonates with me, right? I mean, there's no time, anger, all these things, right? Don't waste your time, right? All these things, let that be your fuel, right? Let that be your fuel to be better, right? So I think that will be the one that has, I guess, sort of catapulted me to do things differently. Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Which Malaysian public figure do you call as a great communicator? It can be politician too. We're not going politics, but we're just teasing it a little bit. I think like a great communicator in his time, like as an actor, was P. Ramlee, right? You think about it, right? So his at that time, it resonated with every Malaysian, right? I mean, it still resonates with every Malaysian, where everybody can laugh at it, right? And it's just for someone in the 60s, right? And he was so radical at that time, right? I mean, and simple. that everybody got it, right? So if you talk about it, but I think young and upcoming, I think who has really mastered using social media as well, of course, is Sadik, right? I think he's gotten it across, very simple, using tools like TikTok, and it's like, wow, I get what you're trying to say, right? And so I think he's done a great job in bringing things to light without being too clever. He doesn't have, you want to be clever, you want to communicate.
Acting too smart.
Yeah. And the people don't understand what you're all about. So he's kept his messaging simple.
If Freda can go back and fix something in her past, what do you go and fix?
What would I go and fix? Okay, so this is something where it's the trigger for me to be better. So do I want to fix it? I suppose I do. But at the same time, I think if it wasn't for that, would I look at life differently? And it would be the relationships, right? I always talk about the wheel of life in my life. And I don't think I sorted out the relationship with my ex-husband well enough, right? You're concerned about your work, you're concerned, you suddenly have a child, and suddenly, you didn't spend enough time nurturing that relationship. So I think if I were to look back, I would have wanted to improve on that.
What's the best advice you ever got in your life?
There's so many things, right? I mean, we've been quoting each here, there, and everywhere. So I don't know if there's
something that, if you have the chance, like talking to a younger version of yourself, you say like, this is really good. Okay, let me answer that. For example, if somebody asked me, I would say like one of the most important lessons is that the goals by itself are not very important. But who you become in order to achieve that goal, that is very important. Like writing a book is not so important. Right. But who you should become, what you need to learn in order to be able to write a book, that is very important. Meaning that even if you fail writing the book, it's okay. You become a better person. What do you think is yours?
Wow.
One great lesson.
Wow.
Like you have only one to say.
I think it won't be a direct quote, but it's something from the holy book, right? I mean, do I have peace of mind? Right? I think that is important. Whatever I do I have that peace? And I think that is so important when you have that peace. And who is Freda Liu when everything is taken from you? Do you have peace with who that person is? Right? So it's not an advice in that sense where there's a one-liner, but I think really you must have that.
It's something similar to like, when you reach to the last day of your life and you are lying down on your deathbed, right? So you look at yourself and think like, have I left anything on the table, or have you achieved your highest potential, something like that? Okay, I don't know whether I should ask you another one. So normally I like to ask people, what's the worst advice you ever get?
The worst advice. You see, when I know they're and I've taken it, right? Okay, usually worst advice I know is bad advice. So I'm very particular about boundaries, right? When people say certain things and I know it's not going to help me, I actually try to limit my time with them. So I can't remember anybody who's given me, but I take it with a pinch of salt, right? And I always look at whether the intention is good. Sometimes people say things and they say it all wrong, but the intention is good. So I also just leave it as that. But if you're going to take up too much of my headspace, I'll sort of slowly extricate you in my life. I can't remember that advice because
all right. So because it's like, every advice, this is something that who I learned it from. They say that, I think it was Ryan Holiday or something. He said that, listen to everybody, even if it's what not to do.
Right.
Meaning that even if it's a bad advice, like that's exactly what you are not supposed to do. And, that's very important one. Okay, the last question I want to ask you is this one.
I promise is the last.
No, because you're a master communicator, right? So I'm trying to ask you things which is related to communication, Okay. Tell something that people don't know about Freda.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, so I don't know if someone, okay, so when I used to work as a receptionist. My first job as a receptionist in Kuching Hilton. So that was really, that was before I furthered my studies. So I think that was something that really taught me how to earn my first income. It's not easy to start earning. My salary at the time was 300 ringgit, right? And we have service points. So I know it's a long time ago, but even then the money was really bad. But then you know what it's like to work. And while I was there, my full-time job working as a receptionist, I was a part-time, I was singing for the Surround Symphony Orchestra. That was the thing, right? And I guess singing was not my career path, but I enjoyed it, right? So I used to sing for the state choir.
Wow, that's nice. That's nice. Thank you. I hope we are the very first people that we are hearing this from you, right? Okay, Freda, where our audience can find you?
Okay, well, there is the website. It's fredaliu.com, FREDALIU.com. Go to LinkedIn. I like connecting with people on LinkedIn. I find that is a great place where we can communicate professionally.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, and you are all over the social media as well. I have noticed that too. So guys, we hope this conversation has inspired you to know and learn more with us. A reminder for every one of you to always live an in control life. It's a life where you love what you do, you love who you do it with, you love who you do it for, and you love how you do it. So please tune in our next episode. And as always, we love to have you around, and thank you for listening to us. Thank you, Freda, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.